The CEO thought it was just another day, until a letter written in purple crayon landed on his desk. "Can you help my mom smile again?" it asked. He nearly tossed it, until she walked into his office later that afternoon, unaware her daughter had written it. What followed was a collision of secrets, healing, and a love story neither of them saw coming, all sparked by the quiet courage of an 8-year-old girl. The sky outside the skyscraper was a cold, pale gray. Inside the glass-walled office, everything was sharp, minimal, and quiet, like the man who sat at the corner desk. His name was Adrian Cole, and at 32 years old, he was already one of the youngest CEOs in the city's history. Known for his precision and emotional detachment, Adrian was the kind of man who responded to success with a nod and failure with silence. His days were carved into 20-minute blocks, and his inbox was filtered by 6 layers of assistance. But that morning, something arrived that none of them had expected: a handwritten envelope with the name Mr. Cole scribbled in purple crayon. His assistant hesitated before placing it on his desk. "We are not sure where it came from," she said. "It was slipped into the mail bin. No return address." Adrian did not look up. "Discard it." But the assistant remained frozen. "Sir, I think you should read it." He glanced at the envelope, unimpressed. But something about the childish scrawl made him reach for it. He opened it slowly. Inside was a piece of paper torn from a notebook, lined and slightly wrinkled. The handwriting was uneven, innocent. "Dear Mr. CEO, my name is Lily. I am 8. I heard you help people find jobs. My mom does not smile much anymore. She tries, but I can tell. She says she used to be very good at things before I was born. I think she still is. Can you help her smile again? She likes books and coffee and fixing broken stuff. She is kind. I think she forgot that. Thank you." Lily. Adrian stared at the letter. He read it once. Then again. There were no spelling mistakes. No dramatic pleas. Just pure, unfiltered honesty. He leaned back slowly in his chair. The silence in the room suddenly louder. He should have discarded it, should have returned to his schedule, his contracts, his data, but he did not, because something about that final line would not leave him. "Can you help her smile again?" Adrian turned to his assistant. "Do we have an interview scheduled today?" She nodded. "Yes, a final round applicant. A woman named Clara, single mother, former editor." Adrian's voice was calm, but something new glimmered beneath the surface. "Send her in." He placed the letter back into the envelope and tucked it inside his desk drawer. Then he stood and adjusted his tie, completely unaware that the woman about to walk through the door was the same one he had just read about, and even less aware that his entire life was about to change. The door opened quietly, and Clara stepped inside. She was in her early 30s. Not overly dressed, not trying to impress. Just simple, clean lines and a quiet grace. A navy blouse, black slacks, and a faded brown leather bag held tightly under one arm. Adrian glanced up from his desk. For a moment, he said nothing. She was beautiful, but not in the polished, intentional way most applicants tried to be. Her beauty came from something more subtle, something lived in. Her eyes were tired but alert. Her posture was slightly defensive but steady. And her smile, what little of it she offered, seemed cautious, like it had been put away for a while and was now being tested again. "Miss Clara Reynolds?" he asked. She gave a polite nod. "Yes. Thank you for seeing me." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." She sat carefully, brushing her hair behind one ear. Her resume was already in front of him, but he made no move to glance at it. Instead, he studied her face. "You used to be a senior editor," he said. "Yes," she replied. "At Griffin Publishing. I left the industry about 5 years ago." He paused. "Why?" She hesitated, just slightly. "Because I became a mother." His eyes did not change, but she sensed the tension in the room shift. "I tried to freelance," she continued, "but it was unpredictable. Bills are not patient. And now, she said, folding her hands. "I am trying to find my place again." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "What made you apply here?" Her lips curled. Faintly. "Honestly, I was not sure I belonged. But someone convinced me I still had value." He nodded slowly. "And do you believe them?" She smiled a little, but it faded as quickly as it came. "I want to." There was a pause. Adrian tapped his pen lightly on the desk, then asked, "What do you think your greatest weakness is?" Clara tilted her head, thinking. I hesitate, she said at last. Not because I do not know the answer, but because I worry whether the answer is right enough. He blinked. That was not the kind of answer he usually got. Do you find that slows you down? Yes, she said honestly. But it also keeps me from making careless mistakes. I learned that the hard way. He nodded once more. And your greatest strength? She looked at him directly for the first time. I have failed enough to know how to start over. Adrian said nothing. His face remained still, but inside, something flickered. The letter in his drawer. The line about her fixing broken things. The mention of books. Coffee. Her daughter had not exaggerated. He stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Behind him, Clara fidgeted with the strap of her bag. Mr. Cole, she said gently. If this is not going anywhere, it is. All right. I know how this works. He turned. How what works? The look, she replied with a half smile. I have seen it before. The math in your head. Single mom. 5-year resume gap. No high-powered contacts. You are trying to figure out if hiring me is worth the risk. He raised an eyebrow. And is it? She let out a quiet breath, then said with a touch of dry humor, that depends. Do you need someone who can juggle deadlines, tantrums, and broken coffee machines before 10 o'clock? Adrian blinked. Then, for the first time that morning, he laughed that IT was short. Soft, but real. She smiled back, small, surprised, but brighter. Than before, IT was the smile her daughter had written about. The one she had forgotten she still had. He sat down again. I have one more question. Clara nodded. All right. Are you willing to let someone remind you that you are still good at what you do? She paused. Not because she was unsure, but because she was moved. Yes, she whispered. Adrian extended his hand. Welcome to the team. Clara stared at it, stunned, then shook it firmly. She left the room 10 minutes later, still unsure what had just happened. Adrian remained at his desk, staring at the closed door, the edges of that crayon letter still peeking from the drawer. IT had begun. Not just a hiring decision, something else entirely. Clara's first week at Cole and Whitman was, in a word, quiet. She arrived early, asked sharp questions, and never lingered longer than necessary. She worked hard, made no excuses, and stayed away from office gossip like it was fire. Her desk, tucked in the side hall of the executive wing, faced a tall window that let in too much morning light. She never closed the blinds. Adrian noticed he noticed more than he should have. How she tied her hair into a messy bun when she focused deeply. How she whispered encouragement to herself when sending a risky email. How she always brought 2 travel mugs, one with coffee, one with tea, because you never know what the day will ask of you. And how she never once mentioned the letter, because she did not know that he kept it in the top drawer of his desk, tucked under a stack of signed contracts and quarterly forecasts. The childish crayon line stared up at him every time he reached for a pen. He told himself he had good reasons not to say anything. She might feel embarrassed. Or worse, she might think he had hired her out of pity, and he had not at least. That was not the whole reason that he saw her potential. Her poise under pressure. The way she handled stress like someone who had already lived through harder storms. But the truth was, the letter had cracked something in him. IT reminded him of his own mother. Of the days she came home exhausted from 3 jobs and still smiled as if the world had not just tried to break her. He remembered being a boy who wanted to fix things he could not fix, and now, he had a letter from a little girl trying to do the same. Point one afternoon, Clara knocked gently on his door that he looked up, masking his thoughts. Everything all right? He asked. She stepped in with a folder. You asked for the revised campaign briefs. He reached out, but before handing it over, she hesitated. I know I am still learning the ropes, she said, but I made some changes. He took the folder, curious. What kind of changes? She smiled shyly. The kind that assumes people still want stories, not just numbers. He opened it, flipped through a few pages. Her edits were bold, honest, empathetic. He looked at her, something warm flickering behind his calm expression. You do not just rewrite text, he said. You rewrite tone. She laughed quietly. Well, I spent 8 years writing bedtime stories, so. Adrian froze, just for a second. She did not notice. She was already halfway out the door. Thank you, he said softly. She paused and turned back. For what? He shook his head. For making this place quieter in a better way. She blinked. touched, then left. Adrian stared at the folder in his hands. Then at the drawer. He did not open it. Not yet. Because as much as he admired her strength, he had not yet decided if he deserved to be part of the story her daughter had started. It was a Sunday afternoon. Adrian never went out on Sundays. His assistant knew better than to schedule anything. Sunday was his routine. Silence, black coffee, 0 meetings, no distractions. But something pulled him outside that day. He found himself walking through Lincoln Park, hands in his coat pockets, breathing in the crisp autumn air like it might rinse something from his chest. He had almost convinced himself to turn back when he heard a child's laugh, bright, unfiltered, real. He looked over and saw a girl, around 8 years old, sitting on the grass with a sketchbook in her lap, drawing with great intensity. She had a small backpack beside her and an oversized hoodie that swallowed her arms. Her brown curls bounced as she leaned over her paper, and then she looked up. Her eyes lit up. "You're him," she shouted, pointing. Adrian blinked. "Excuse me." The girl stood up, running toward him without hesitation. "You're the man from the photo on Mom's laptop." He froze. "I saw you once. She said you were the boss of her new job. She did not know I was looking." Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it. "Are you Mr. Cole?" she asked, already sure of the answer. He nodded slowly. "Yes. And you must be Lily," she said, beaming. "I wrote you a letter." He stared at her, the full truth dawning like sunrise. She stood there proudly, arms crossed. "Did you get it?" He nodded again, unable to speak for a moment. "Yes, I did." She tilted her head. "Did it work?" Adrian chuckled gently. "Work? Yeah," she said seriously. "Did it make you want to help her smile again?" He studied her for a long, quiet second. "Yes," he said at last. "It did." Lily grinned, clearly pleased. "Good," she said, "because she is really cool. And really sad when she thinks I am asleep." Adrian's heart tightened in a way he had not expected. "You pay attention," he said. She shrugged. "She pays attention to me. I figure I should return the favor." He sat down slowly on the bench beside her sketch pad. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the drawing. She handed it over. It was a pencil sketch of a woman, Clara, holding a cup of coffee, her eyes looking out a window. Her mouth was trying to smile, but not quite making it. Adrian looked up at Lily. "You're very talented." She smiled again. "Thanks. I draw when I want to say something without saying it." There was a long pause. Then she asked, "Can I tell you a secret?" Adrian leaned in, nodding. "I do not think she needs to be rescued," Lily whispered. "I just think she forgot she is the hero." He looked at her, stunned by the wisdom inside that tiny voice. Lily picked up her backpack. "We better go. She thinks I am at the library." Adrian stood, still a little dazed. "It was nice to meet you, Lily." She turned back as she walked away. "You too. And thank you for reading it." Then she ran off down the path, hair bouncing behind her like a banner of joy. Adrian stood alone in the park, the sound of her steps fading. He realized he had not felt that much, anything, in a very long time. Monday morning arrived with cold air and quiet tension. Clara walked into the office with her usual calm expression and a travel mug in each hand. Her desk was already organized, her day carefully planned. But there was something different in the air, too quiet, too still. Then she heard her name from across the room. "Clara," a cheerful voice called. It was Becca from HR, walking over with a folder in hand. "Hey, random question. What a sweet letter your daughter wrote. You must have been so proud." Clara froze. "Sorry, what letter?" Becca smiled, oblivious. "The one that brought you here, I guess. I saw a copy of it on Adrian's desk the other day. Can you help my mom smile again?" "That one." The words dropped like glass. Becca kept talking, but Clara could not hear her anymore. Everything inside her went still. She turned and walked straight toward the executive wing. Each step felt heavier than the last. Not angry, not confused, hurt. When she reached Adrian's door, she did not knock. He looked up, surprised. "Clara." She held up her hand. "You knew." He stood slowly. "Clara, let me explain." "You knew?" she repeated, her voice shaking. "Now, this whole time, you read my daughter's letter and never told me." "It was not the right moment," he said carefully. "No," she snapped. "The right moment was before you hired me. Before you let me sit in that chair and beg for a job I thought I earned on my own." He took a step forward. You did earn it. The letter brought you to my attention, yes, but your work, your mind, your voice, that is why I kept you. But it started with pity, she said, her eyes shining. You looked at me and saw a sad story. No, he said more firmly now. I saw a woman who forgot she mattered, and a little girl who refused to let the world forget her mother's worth. She blinked hard. You could have told me, she whispered. We could have laughed about it, or cried, but you hid it. You turned something sacred, something from my daughter's heart, into leverage. Adrian shook his head. It was never that. She looked at him for a long time. I trusted you. I did not want to embarrass you. You wanted control, she said, voice now cold. That is what you do, right? Control people's stories. Control their emotions. Make sure no one sees you feel anything real. Adrian flinched slightly at that, but he said nothing. Clara stepped back toward the door. I cannot work for someone who lies. Even if he tells himself it is for a good reason. Clara, she paused at the threshold. My daughter may have written to you, she said quietly, but I showed up thinking I earned a chance. I thought I was becoming someone again. You are, he said, voice cracking for the first time. She nodded once. Then let me do it without you. And she walked out. Adrian stood alone in his office, the drawer half open, the letter still. There he reached for it. Not to hide it, not to read it again, but to feel the weight of what he had done. Not because he hired someone for the wrong reason, but because he lost her for not being honest about the right one. 3 days passed. Clara did not return any calls. Her desk remained empty. Her name disappeared from the schedule. Her files neatly transferred. Her access quietly revoked. Adrian told no one what happened. He simply worked, harder than ever. Longer. Hours. Fewer words. But something in him had gone still. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, his phone buzzed. It was a hospital number. He almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him answer. The voice was soft, rushed, unfamiliar. Mr. Cole? I believe you know Clara Reynolds. She listed you as an emergency contact on her job application. His heart skipped. Yes. What happened? Her daughter, Lily, was admitted 2 hours ago. High fever, shallow breathing. We stabilized her, but Ms. Reynolds is alone, and we thought you should know. He did not ask questions. He did not call his driver. He ran out 45 minutes later. He pushed open the hospital doors. His suit jacket soaked through. He found her in the pediatric waiting room, sitting alone in a plastic chair. Her shoulders were slumped, hands buried in her lap. She looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way he had never seen before. When she looked up and saw him, she did not speak. Her eyes were red. He sat down beside her in silence. She has pneumonia, she said finally. They say it is mild, but I panicked. He nodded, quietly. I had no one else to list, she added, voice barely audible. I am glad you did, he said. She looked down. You did not have to come. He turned to her. You are right. I did not. But I wanted to. She said nothing. The silence between them stretched, but it was not cold this time. It held weight. Truth. After a while, he asked, May I see her? Clara hesitated, then nodded. They walked into the dim hospital room together. Lily was asleep, her cheeks flushed, a small oxygen mask resting gently on her face. Her sketchbook was on the side table. Adrian stepped forward slowly and placed a small, folded paper next to it. Clara glanced at him. It is a drawing she gave me, he said. The first one I ever saw. She walked over and picked it up. It was a sketch of her holding a mug, smiling, really smiling. I kept it, he said softly, because it reminded me what hope looked like. Clara's eyes brimmed with tears. She wanted to save me, she whispered. And she did. But I was too afraid to let you help. I never wanted to fix you, Adrian said. I just wanted to stand beside you while you healed. She turned to him, stunned by the softness in his voice. You are not who I thought you were, she said. He smiled faintly. Neither are you. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside that quiet hospital room, something fragile and real began to mend. Not with promises, just presence. 2 weeks later, Lily was healthy again. She had returned to her usual self, drawing on everything, narrating stories to her stuffed animals, asking impossibly deep questions at the worst possible times. Clara, on the other hand, was not quite sure who she had become. She was no longer just the struggling single mom. No longer just the woman trying to prove she still had something left to offer. She was someone who had been seen, fully, honestly, and was still wanted. That was new. And it terrified her. Adrian had not pushed. Since that day in the hospital, he had kept his distance. No calls, no emails, only one small note, delivered to her apartment mailbox, handwritten and folded without an envelope. Whenever you are ready to start something honest, I will be waiting, with coffee and awkward silences. Yours, A. It sat on her nightstand for 5 days. Then one Saturday morning, Lily, already in full coloring mode at the kitchen table, looked up and said, "Do you miss him?" Clara blinked. "Who?" Lily gave her a look. "The man who makes your eyebrows do that thing." Clara laughed. "What thing?" Lily furrowed her own brows in dramatic concentration. "That, I am trying not to smile, but I am totally smiling on the inside thing." Clara tried to hide her amusement. "Maybe a little." "Then why don't you call him?" Clara hesitated, and then she said, "What if he does not want me anymore?" Lily shrugged. "That is dumb." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Wow. Thank you for that deeply nuanced insight." Lily giggled. "You're welcome." That afternoon, Clara stood outside the Cole and Whitman building, not dressed for business, not holding a resume, just jeans, sneakers, and a sweater that Lily had picked because you look like you're going to be in a movie. She walked past the security desk. The guards still remembered her. One even gave her a thumbs up when she stepped off the elevator. Onto the executive floor, she saw him before he saw her. Adrian stood near the window, reviewing something on a tablet. Same sharp posture, same navy suit. But something was different. He looked less guarded. She cleared her throat. He turned. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Clara said, "I got your note." He nodded once. "I meant it." She stepped closer. "I do not want a job." He set the tablet down. "Good. I have been looking for an excuse to fire you." She smiled. "You are terrible at flirting." He smiled back. "I have no training." She took another step. "I brought a peace offering." He raised an eyebrow. She pulled something from her bag that sketched. It was Lily's latest drawing, 3 stick figures. One tall man in a suit, one woman in a sweater, and one little girl, with stars around her head. Underneath, in messy handwriting, were the words, "We are not broken. Just getting started." Adrian took the drawing gently, then looked up at Clara. "Would you like to start something?" he asked. She tilted her head. "That depends. Is it going to be awkward?" "Definitely," he said. "And probably slow. Messy. Real." She smiled. "Perfect." And then, without ceremony, without speeches, she stepped forward and kissed him. It was not dramatic. It was quiet. Certain. True. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "Thank you for believing in my daughter. And for letting her teach you how to believe in me." He looked at her, eyes soft. "She taught me how to believe in myself." That night, they walked together down the street, hand in hand, Clara, Adrian, and Lily, who insisted on sitting on Adrian's shoulders the whole way, narrating their love story like she had written it herself. In a way, she had, because sometimes the smallest voices write the biggest beginnings, and all it takes is one letter. In a world that moves too fast, sometimes it takes a child's letter to remind us what truly matters. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. I read every single one. Tell me where in the world you are watching from. And do not forget to subscribe for more soul-stirring stories, emotional stories, touching stories, and heartwarming stories that remind us love is often found in the quietest places.